Ty the Bourbon Guy.
Ty the Bourbon Guy.
Welcome back to the podcast, man.
I appreciate you having me back.
Of course, dude. We had to.
Family, bourbon.
Family and bourbon is what we're all about today. We're back in Indiana, near Indianapolis, where Andrew and I have been hanging out. And of course, I had to reach out so we could do another podcast.
Yep.
My second cousin, who we may never have known that was the fact,
Yeah.
but like we figured it out, and now it's hilarious. And I brought your second cousin and my first cousin, Jordan Shaw, here with me today to come observe the podcast. But what we're really here to do today is to like make it an early weekend.
Yeah.
Get a jump start.
Yeah, we're starting it
So
early.
we're ready. Pre-game for the weekend.
That's right.
Um,
Set the mood.
yeah.
Yep.
And you've already supplied Jordan, who's a Moscow Mule fan, with a Kentucky Mule.
A Kentucky Mule. Yep.
So what is that?
So, mainly, especially around here, most people call it Kentucky Mule. So it's bourbon, and for that particular cocktail, we use Old Forester 100 is what it's called. I always use crushed ice. Doesn't really matter what ice you use, but bourbon, ginger beer, and lime juice. So freshly squeezed lime juice. So anytime I'm going out and stuff like that, that's kind of, especially like during the summer when it's hot, it's been hot lately. I just think it's funny because, there's sometimes where people think that I'm just drinking 130 proof
right.
bourbon all the time, when it's 100 degrees outside. And it's
Yeah.
like, no, sometimes I want something refreshing.
Right.
And, I like an old fashioned, but I don't want that in the middle of a 100-degree day either. So the Kentucky Mule is kind of the way to go for me.
I like that because bourbon it's a little bit of a heavy kind of evening drink.
Yep.
It's not necessarily something you want when you're already out sweating and stuff, but there's ways to make it a bit more summery.
Yeah.
So I feel a little naked on this show without something in my hands.
Yeah.
Should we get the tour
I guess we got to pour it up.
started?
Let's
Let's do it. All right,
yeah.
where do you want to start?
All right, so last time after we finished the show, I realized that you'd always wanted to try Buffalo Trace.
Thank you much.
And of course, we had to
You got your
bring out
branded
the
glasses.
actual merch, right?
Yeah. Yep. I like your logo a lot, man.
Thanks. So, your other cousin, my sister Jordan, is the one that actually designed that logo for me.
Oh,
She
nice.
is an artist.
Nice. Cheers, man.
Cheers.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for coming back. Thanks for having me on the show.
For the homies. Okay, now here's what I remember.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to smell it first.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And then you're supposed to kind of ignore the ethanol factor.
Yep. See if you can go past that. And one of the things that I do is, and it may look kind of weird, but I actually rotate my nose sometimes. So mainly because, especially this time here for me, one of my, maybe it's sinuses, I don't know, maybe it's some type of blockage or something like that to where I can't really pick up something to smell.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes I'll just turn my head and see if I'm picking up more in one nostril than the other. But Buffalo Trace is just a solid bourbon overall. But
Yeah. I like it. And again, I remember, don't judge it by your first sip because,
because that first sip just
it's
kind of
early in the day and
Yep.
it's just going to hit.
Yep.
Just going to warm you up.
Yep. So then once you take that second sip, and then once you go back to the nose, you should be able to pick up more.
It's so elitist. I love it.
Well, you got to put the pinky out, and then we're there. But
Yeah. I think it's true that you need things to compare it to too, and that's
Yep.
that's one thing I remember from last time. It's like now in my head, okay, baseline, and I feel like with Buffalo Trace, in my experience, that is a good baseline. That's a
is.
solid bourbon, and it's not like heavily in any one direction to me.
very quintessential bourbon. Like it's one of those things when you think about tasting notes for bourbon, you think vanilla, caramel. Some people say cherry, some people say butterscotch. All these kind of different ones. This is pretty much all of those, I feel like. So it's just a very, very good baseline. It's a very good introduction to bourbon.
I'm really feel like I'm studying this time.
Yeah.
I was thinking of some historical connections here. I was reading George Washington's biography, and he had one of the largest distilleries in the country at the time, which I thought of you as soon as I heard about that.
Yeah.
Because you wouldn't anticipate Washington. He wasn't much of a drinker. He drank some, but or any of the founding fathers with that, because I think we think about whiskey as being just a little later in history, but it's not.
No.
And the fact was, Andrea looked it up for him. It was like 14,000 barrels or something from his 11,000 barrels from his distillery in the year 1799. Yeah, memories on par while I just started drinking, so that's helpful. And so I thought of you, and I was like, this is kind of a cool connection.
Really, the story that I probably think makes more sense is for whiskey to go into a barrel, and again, they put it in clear, they put it in a barrel, and then they send it down the Mississippi River, and it would go down to Louisiana, New Orleans, and obviously Bourbon Street's down there and all that stuff, and so the whiskey, that because of how long it took to get down there, the whiskey is actually aging in that barrel on the way down, and then they try it there, and they come back to Kentucky and say, give me some of that, basically what I had on Bourbon Street or whatever, right? So give me some of that bourbon. And so that's a story that's kind of held up, and I think to me that probably makes the most sense.
It does.
As to where that all came from.
What is the etymology of it being called bourbon? Because that's a super French word. Mm-hmm. So would that have been the reason that it's referred to in that way?
So there's that logic, and then there's Bourbon County, where they made it. So to me, it's like, I don't know. That probably makes the most sense out of any of it than as to. And I understand. I mean, you had crops that you had to do something with. Okay, we can turn corn into whiskey, and then we can store it in these barrels till whenever we can get to it.
It lasts forever. It doesn't make us sick when we drink it, unlike water.
Right.
I like that we're making the historical connections today. Maybe we should have another one before I go deeper into history.
Yeah. Well, this would be the perfect time to now try Nectar's American whiskey.
$17.53. Wow. Or so they say, right?
Right. I'm just trying to make a connection for any reason to open this bottle up.
Perfect.
But, so this actually is not a bourbon, technically. This is an American whiskey.
I'm so impressed with how you balanced that glass on your leg just now.
I make a lot of people nervous, and
I was getting nervous.
I do it all the time, so it's
your glass. It's yours to do with. But it definitely made me nervous.
If you use a barrel that's already been used for something else, you can't call it bourbon. You now have to call it something else. So you can call it American whiskey, or you can call it whatever else. So there's when you see American whiskey, it could be pretty much bourbon, but maybe there's something in their process that they adjusted slightly. Bourbon has to be 51% corn at least. Let's say there's 50% corn in this, so now they can't call it a bourbon. They got to call it a whiskey. So it gets very confusing, but I just tell people to drink it and tell me what it tastes. If you
okay,
like
well, I'm open to it.
Yeah.
It's all right. I don't judge by names. Very different.
Yeah, and that's where I like trying, just comparing, because it helps me identify more notes in the first one.
Mm-hmm.
So right away, it's not as spicy as the Buffalo Trace was to me.
I feel the opposite.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I think you're probably right in the objective sense, but I feel the opposite. I feel it's far spicier. I'm getting like spiced fruit.
Okay.
That's all but spicy in a way that's like not like cinnamon, but like hot sauce almost.
Mm.
Yeah.
When I always tell people, people always ask me like, well, what is the right answer? And it's like, there's no right answer.
Mm-hmm.
It's whatever.
I like it. It's strong.
Yeah. Yeah. So this one, I don't know. It's we didn't go in a totally different direction, but we definitely went in a different direction, if that makes sense. So we're gonna go in a totally different direction when we get to these ones, but that particular one, It's funny you said hot sauce. I don't know that I've ever thought of that, but I could definitely see what you're saying.
Yeah, well, because it lasts too.
Mhm.
I take a drink of it, and I'm still tasting it. My tongue's still kind of numb, as if I've had a hot wing.
Yeah. But that's why, I mean, again, people always ask me what's the right answer. But especially somebody that doesn't know some of the more common tasting notes, I love hearing those descriptions because I would have never thought of that. But
You make me feel special.
Yeah, there you go.
It's
that's
fun.
what it is, yeah.
Listening to you talk about what you're tasting for might inform somebody else about like what things they could be tasting for as they drink their bourbon.
Yep.
And for me, it's just, I'm representing the amateur's point of view, but you've yet to give me a bourbon that I don't like, although frankly, I think that'd be really challenging 'cause I just like whiskey.
Yeah.
I'm still like whiskey loyal. That's still my one drink. I don't keep anything else in the house. This one's interesting. I won't say it's my favorite of the ones I've tried. Because I feel like it's just a little, I don't know.
Do you feel like it lacks the depth?
Yeah.
That the Buffalo Trace does?
Yeah.
Yep.
The spice overpowers me. But it's cool to have something that's so unique to compare anything else to. But I feel like, what I feel like I'm getting is more like, I don't know, maybe it's like too sweet almost. Should we go somewhere next?
We should. So, do you like red wine or beer or anything like that?
I don't know how much you want to know, really. I do like beer. I like a good stout, like a Guinness is like a family tradition.
You couldn't have said it anymore, but
that's perfect.
That's
yeah.
Bardstown Bourbon Company, they have done different collaborations to where they source some of their whiskey. That's where I said they get it from different places. Tennessee, Kentucky. Lately, they've gone to Canada and got some whiskey. And then they make their own. So they have a lot of different types of whiskey coming in to play with. And so one of the things that I think is awesome about what they're doing is while their product is aging, they have been able to partner with several different brands and say, okay, you make beer. So this particular bottle, they've partnered with Founders Brewing, based out of Michigan. So this is actually the beer itself. So it's called KBS is the name of the beer. It's a flavored stout. Just says ale brewed with chocolate and coffee, aged in oak bourbon barrels.
Yeah, so that would be something. That would be a beer I would buy.
Right.
Like, that is a description that.
And that's why when you were saying that, I was like, oh yeah, we're going in the right direction.
Cool.
So I think it's really neat what Bardstown is doing because this is a stout aged in oak bourbon barrels. Okay, we've had a couple. This is the third one.
Yeah, I know. I'm feeling
reading's hard.
No
I'm
problem.
a numbers guy. But then they take the whiskey, and then after they have the whiskey that's barreled, they then say, okay, let's give us the barrels that you used with this,
right? And
we'll put the bourbon back into that barrel.
So would that make it not technically bourbon then, because it's not a first use?
So the way the government actually handles this is you can say bourbon, but you have to put that it's finished. So I don't know if anybody's going to be able to actually see this, but it says straight bourbon whiskey finished in Founders KBS aged stout barrels.
Whoa. I mean, is this an endless cycle? Like, can we go back and make more beer?
Right, yeah, and then go make more beer. So the thing about that is they're not putting that on there so that I know that. They're putting that on there because they legally have to put that on there. So it is a straight bourbon. That's what it starts out as. But then we took that and we put it in stout barrels provided to us from KBS or from Founders KBS Brewing. So they put the little KBS logo on the back. I will.
Please do.
Yeah.
You've hyped this up too much now because I'm really excited about this. Yeah, I didn't realize it could go the other way. I mean, I would always want to buy a beer if it was like, hey, aged in bourbon barrels. I'm like, all right, I'm going to like that. I didn't realize it could go the other way at all.
And to be honest, what I've learned about whiskey that I really like is because I'm the same way. I love Guinness. I love stouts. I love porters. So I have realized that whiskey, that kind of carries over. So when I'm drinking whiskey, some of the best whiskeys I've ever had, in my opinion, have some type of chocolate note to them, some type of coffee note to them. You know, there's just certain characteristics that are common between a stout or a porter and certain whiskeys. So
okay, all right, I'm excited.
So I think especially knowing that where it comes from or what it was aged in, I think you can definitely pick that up.
Dude, that is like a chocolate bomb in a way to me. That first one.
Yep. So this one's a little higher proof than what we've been drinking.
Yeah,
So
that's for
this is,
sure.
This is 110 proof, 55% alcohol.
So I like that you've told me now, like, kind of get over the burn first.
Yep.
Because your tongue gets a little numb to that burn, and so does your nose, and then you can kind of go back in and really see what's up.
Yep. Yeah, because if you base it on that, it's going to be tough no matter what, just because of the alcohol percentage. So
This is extremely chocolatey to me.
mm-hmm. See, I actually got more chocolate after I always do, man. After I take that first sip and I go back, I get more.
That's fantastic. That is really fantastic. It's crazy strong.
Something to me like this that has so much going on, if I put ice in it, it may drown out the heavy ethanol notes, and now it might enhance the chocolate and the coffee and all that stuff. So
I don't think it needs it to me because I'm just getting straight coffee, chocolate.
Yeah.
That like really good bitter thing. That's super unique.
Yep.
Remind people where they can go to find you.
Yeah. So lately, the only social media that I've actually been interacting on is Instagram. So you can find me on there, Ty the Bourbon Guy, TYTHEBO Bourbon Guy. So I'm on there. Feel free to send a direct message or anything like that if you ever have any questions about whiskey or bourbon. I get them all the time, and I love that. I mean, that's something to me. It's a passion of mine, and I love to see where people are in their own journeys and kind of help them along, find maybe that next bottle that they enjoy. You know, hey, I like this. What do you recommend based on that?